at the moment. So the key to race warm-ups: have a routine that prepares you physically and mentally. It's got to work for you. Make sure your watch is set to the official race time so you won't be late. Shame that Leslie's left because she has a watch that's always 8 minutes behind.
They're all different, aren't they?
They're all different. I made a mistake one day of thinking, oh, the watch is wrong, I've changed it. Didn't go down very well, it threw her out. So like I say, finish the warm-up 10 minutes before the start, know where the start line is and factor that into the warm-up. So it's a long 30-minute ride. I mean, I've had some events where it's literally 20, 30 minutes because they've had to change the course last minute. Do your warm-up on the road, but do those segments within it. Do the sprints on the road. Give yourself a bit of a cushion though, because the last thing you want to do is to cut it too fine. I can't remember who it was last weekend at Tour of Mercia, literally rolled up on the ramp and went straight down the other side. I can't remember who it was now, but it's brilliant timing. I don't think it was quite to plan. This is another one. Take yourself a little bit away. It's very, very often, you know, you see it in the HQ, people are milling around, people that are starting later, come along, start talking to you. I've actually suggested to people, even if you don't like listening to music in your warm-up, put the iPod in anyway, put your headphones in, pretend you've got it on. Because it's not being rude. You know, think about yourself and what you need. Plenty of time to talk about how good your race was after the event, not how good it was going to be. So take yourself and really get into that. You know, like Louise was saying, get into the race, get in the zone mentally. Hopefully that means you'll arrive at the line ready to go. Right, so ergogenic aids. Like I say, icing on the cake. Everything should have been done to prepare you maximally. It's almost like taking you beyond your potential. Which sounds a bit bizarre, but you know, physically, mentally, we've got you up there. These are just the added edge.
Legally.
Interestingly, though, I have had conversations with people about ethically. And my personal take on it is sport is only defined by the rules in the rule book. And if you're allowed to take it, take it. Wasn't that long ago when carbohydrate loading strategies were thought unethical because it's not normal.
Training.
Yeah, you look back to the Chariots of Fire days. And yeah, exactly. It's amateurs don't train. That's cheating. So if it's in the rule book, you can take it. Or if it's not in the rule book and you can't take it, yeah, it's within the playing field. So.
Tour de France banned water not too long ago.
Hmm?
No more than 2 litres of water.
You had as much gin as you wanted. So, ergogenic aids, what are they? Any external influence that can enhance performance. So we tend to think of it a little bit about the chemicals, don't we? But actually, ergogenic aids are anything that can improve performance. You know, mechanical aids like fast suits, you know, the skin suits without seams. Pharmacological aids, they're the ones we tend to think about, they're the chemicals that we can put in ourselves. Physiological aids, things like warm-up, or even using things like power breaths to warm up the lung muscles. Nutritional aids, carbohydrate loading, psychological aids, mental imagery, those kind of things. So lots of aids to improve performance. Interesting with the nutrition one, in France, creatine is banned, even though it occurs naturally in meat. Interesting.
Do they actually test for it?
Yeah, you can. You can be. You know, so it's all about natural normal limit, and that's where it gets a little bit dicey, doesn't it, in terms of kind of weighing up what you can take in naturally versus what is over and above. And I liken it a little bit to do you use Nurofen or not on race day? It's kind of like, well, with Nurofen it takes away a headache, it doesn't give you an advantage. This is going the other way, this is taking you above. You know, you wouldn't normally have 8 cans of Red Bull routinely. There's a whole host of things. I mean, these are just a few of the things I'm going to be talking about today. You know, caffeine, sodium phosphate, bottle cleaner to its friends, creatine, baking soda or sodium bicarbonate, beta-alanine, then there's a few that I can't say, which I'll come on to in a minute because I can't pronounce them, not because I can't tell you. But basically, there's so much stuff out there that for the athlete, it can really become a bit of a minefield, knowing what to take, what not to take, what's good for you. Do things have long-term effects? Now we're actually getting to a point where we're finding out that it is safe long-term to take creatine. It's not as damaging as to the kidney as people once feared. So there's a whole load of stuff out there. It's very hard to determine what is right. Wired cat had to come back when I first started talking about caffeine. Caffeine's an interesting one. I think we all know why caffeine works. Really, it's about that whole arousal system, isn't it? Like getting yourself up. As soon as you're taking caffeine, you get adrenaline. As soon as you get adrenaline, you get a breakdown of energy a lot quicker. Your alertness improves. Adrenaline is the hormone that basically tells you to get up and run when you've got a hunter after you or a wild animal. So it's just putting lots of stimulation into the system. In terms of physiologically, certainly drinking caffeine can help you burn more fat. Well-known training strategy of cyclists is to go out having drunk 4 or 5 cups of black coffee. Traditionally, that's why cycling and coffee actually had the link. It's all about fat burning because cyclists are the most concerned about body weight across the whole endurance brigade, really. And the other one that's really coming into the foreground now with caffeine is this whole central versus peripheral fatigue. And if you feed someone caffeine, chances are they interpret the signals of fatigue in a different way to those who don't have caffeine. So there's lots of chemical pathways involved, but basically it overrides a lot of the fatigue mechanisms, mentally and physically. And a whole host of studies have been done. This is taken directly from the PBscience fact sheet on caffeine, so you can get this table in a bit more detail. So I appreciate it's very, very small. But I'll just summarise by saying all the column here, down on the right, about results, basically improved performance for a range of 26%, 31%, 20 minutes. It's equivocal. Caffeine does improve performance. Slight caveat on this though, if you're a habitual caffeine drinker, the effect will be less. So if you're going into the race season, switch to decaf.
What's the quantity? Like say I have one mug of really strong coffee in the morning and that's it for the day in terms of coffee. Is that a habitual drinker or is that okay?
Yeah, any coffee's habitual, and particularly if you're doing it every day.
Yeah.
It's one of those dose response things that if you cut it out, it's going to have the maximal effect come race day.
If I switch to tea, is that a lesser?
Yeah. Well, there's this myth that tea has just as much caffeine as coffee. It doesn't. If you actually look at like for like, coffee is the most loaded. Yes, tea has caffeine in it, but it's not. But certainly, switch to peppermint tea, switch to decaf. If not, you're going to have to put your dosage of caffeine up for a race.
Decaf tea, I can't tell us the difference.
No, I think all decaf drinks now. Yeah. Okay, the next one, sodium bicarbonate. Just to very briefly explain, and I don't want to kind of like preach to the converted, because you all know that from experience, once you start getting into that territory of zone 4, 25-mile pace, criterium race level, you're generating a lot of lactic acid. Think about lactic acid when you produce it in the muscles. As soon as it goes out of the muscle and hits the blood, it goes to lactate and hydrogen ions. There's a lot of acidity in your blood. And the thing about sodium bicarbonate is it comes along and neutralises that acid. So by buffering the high hydrogen ion content within your blood, it actually, in the muscles, it allows you to keep contracting at higher intensities. So that's why sodium bicarb works. So any race where you're accumulating lactic acid, so anything that's an hour or shorter, remember anything an hour or longer, you should in theory be steady state. So anything that's less than an hour, it's worth thinking about sodium bicarbonate. That's baking soda. So you can buy it in Sainsbury's, you can bake a cake and then use the rest of it for ergogenic aid purposes. This is my favourite I think this is, it goes without saying, have it.
How much did you put that in your bottle, or do you just have a mouthful of it?
If you're really brave, the problem with anything that's sodium based, it's very salty, so it's hard to keep down. Not to put you off, the way round that is to get those little gelatin capsules, the empty ones you can buy from Sports Supplement or on the Barrett online, I think can do them. There's a link on the fact sheet where you can buy the gelatin capsules from. But you spend the night before as part of your pre-race prep filling up 1 gram capsules. And I used to have like 25 of those.
It's
Story.
25 grams. That seems a lot.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, it is a lot. And it's worth trying it out in training, stepping it up and seeing what you can handle. Most of these, when I talk about dosages, they are per kilogram of body mass as well. So what I might take would be different to what you might take, Joe. You'd have more. And again, the literature is very, very convincing on sodium bicarbonate. I'm not quite sure you'll get 62% improvement, but I've really noticed as soon as I started taking sodium bicarbonate, my performance went up and also I felt better during the race. And I think that's a lot of it. You're not getting those cues of acidity because the alkaline is coming in to neutralise it. So part of it is just the perception of the fatigue. You might be the kind of person that can handle the pain coming back, but if you're someone that wants to calm that, almost like that burning, then this is definitely worth a go.
Would you use it like caffeine as well, so you don't have it and then you have it on the big race? So
That's a good question. With a lot of these ergogenic aids, some of them report in the research, if you use them too often, they lose their impact. Sodium phosphate's one of those. They suggest you only do it maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Sodium bicarbonate, interestingly enough, some research in the last 18 months, 2 years, has looked at using this in training. Theory being, if you can buffer lactic acid in intervals, you should be able to go harder. I'm not quite sure about that. I think it enables you to work at high power outputs. This is my theory behind EPO use. Once an EPO user, always an EPO user, you're never on a level playing field again. Because if you've had a history of using EPO to boost your red blood cells, get more oxygen into the tissue, you've been able to use 20 watts more in training, your physiology's at a higher level than those people that haven't used it. That's a completely different argument, again, compared to whether people should rightfully come back into the peloton when they don't. It's not an ethical issue there, it's just purely a physiological issue.